If you take a look right behind me, we have something very important for our pontoon boat. If you're new here and haven't seen any of my videos, I have been building a pontoon boat from the ground up. Now this pontoon boat is very special. The pontoons on this boat are very new, very unique, very different. They are a translucent polyplastic from pontoonwholesalers.com, and what makes them so unique and special is that you can install LED lights on them and then the whole pontoon themselves will light up. This is one of the first in the United States to be built that I know of. I think it was the first, but I've been a little bit slow on putting this thing together. But I think there's some people out there who are already done building one, but nothing like mine. In previous episodes, we got this whole pontoon put together. These pontoons themselves slide in and piece together kind of like a Lego set. They get delivered straight to your house, so you don't have to go pick it up anywhere. It's very nice. Deliver straight to your door, put the decking down, put the flooring down. Then we put the furniture up there from pontoonstuff.com. Their luxury line tan furniture looks awesome. And in the last few episodes, we built our bar/helm. People can sit around, have some drinks, play cards, do whatever around it. And then the back area is where the captain sits and he controls and steers and everything like that. Now everything is up on the boat installed, but it's not bolted down yet. And that's because we've been waiting for one kind of important piece, the fencing for the pontoon boat. And the reason why we've been waiting for that is because I have been very picky on what kind of fencing I want. I'm wanting fencing that is open in the back area. A lot of the new boats coming out have an open end fencing layout. And I've been trying to get my hands on a set. I found a few pieces from a Barletta pontoon that I've been trying to piece together, thinking it was only gonna take a few months to piece it together, but it's been about a year almost trying to piece that thing together and it's just not happening. So what I did is I bought a complete set, basically brand new, from Indiana, and it's being shipped down here in a couple weeks. So once that fencing is in, I can install it on the boat and then we can start piecing this whole thing back together. But we still have one more major piece to install on this boat that we can do without the fencing, and that is this. If you can't tell what this is already, this is a motor. This is a brand new Suzuki 90 horsepower motor, still in the crate, and I've never had anything brand new before. Not a motor, not a car, nothing like that. So this is gonna be a new thing for me. We're gonna install this on the boat and get it all prepped and ready to run. I don't know if we're gonna be able to start this thing in this episode. I'm gonna try to, but we are gonna get it mounted up and do a lot of extra stuff that we need to get done on the boat. The first thing we need to do is figure out how to get this off my truck. They put this on my truck with forklifts, and I don't have one, so we gotta figure out how to get this thing off the truck and onto the boat. It's gonna be a challenge in itself, but hopefully we can get it done by myself, maybe. That is what's up next. Stay tuned and cross your fingers. Hopefully nothing goes wrong, because this is a very expensive mistake if I drop it. Well, you witnessed it here first. You can do this by yourself. Is it the easiest thing in the world? Definitely not. The MVP of this whole thing is my winch I have attached to the front of my garage. I use it for pulling in vehicles that don't run, or pretty much anything I need to pull in here that I can't push in by myself. And that little thing was able to pull this motor off of the truck. Put some ramps down, and it kept getting caught every few inches or so, so I had to like slowly inch it down piece by piece, getting it unstuck on the ramp. But we got it off, and I wanted to take my time doing it because I did not want this thing to fall. I didn't want to get a scratch on it. I didn't want anything to happen to it because this is a big chunk of change. This is gonna set me back a little bit. But I'm excited, brand new motor, and it's on here. The other MVP about this whole thing is a cherry picker. Now this cherry picker is a cheap one from Harbor Freight, and it came in really handy moving motors around. I've used this thing every time I installed a motor on a pontoon boat, which is pretty much every single one I've rebuilt. I don't even think I've used it for pulling out a motor out of a car, its intended purpose, but for boats it's been pretty good. It lifts the motors high enough to install on a boat pretty easily, so for about $115 or so, I don't know how much they go for nowadays, but a little over $100, good option if you're trying to install a motor on your boat. It is on here now. This is a brand new Suzuki 90 horsepower motor. This one's more on the affordable side. It's like right under $10,000. I went with the 90 horsepower because I'm not looking to go speedboating on this thing. I just want to get around the lake comfortably, get up to speed comfortably, and this is a good option for that. Also quickly hooked it up to a motor, that way I can move the trim up and down. Man, is that how fast they're supposed to be? Because all my used motors have not been that fast. It's pretty nice. A couple things I didn't know about getting a brand new motor is, one, they don't come with much. It came with the bolts to install it on your transom and then the wiring to the battery, and that's pretty much it. Everything else that's in this box is like a little tool kit and just a little bit of connections that you need to hook up whenever you hook up the throttle cable and everything. I figured they came with all the rigging that you need, but definitely not. It doesn't even come with the wiring harness, so I gotta order that. And I also need to measure out how long of the throttle cables I need, because I need to order that too. And then also install all the steering and stuff, because that needs to be installed as well. One more thing you may notice it doesn't come with is a prop. I need to find a prop that's gonna work for this boat. Bunch of different options out there. I'm not an expert on which prop to use. I know stainless is very expensive. Probably gonna wait a while before I get a stainless prop, so I'm gonna get an affordable aluminum prop, one that works for this boat. I need to do some research on what I think is going to work for it. Install all that, get all that hooked up. I need to hook up the throttle cables, the steering, and all the other stuff. A little bit more to hook up. I need to make sure there's oil in there. I'm assuming it doesn't come with oil in it. Oh yeah, it says right here, fill engine with oil. Hook up the gas lines, and I think I'm gonna have to order a longer battery cable, one that goes all the way to the console. Still a little bit of work to do to get this thing ready to start. As for all the wiring, I'm not gonna be able to hook it up to my console yet because I don't wanna drill holes in my flooring until I know where the fencing goes. And I can't do that until I get the fencing in, so might have to hold off a little bit before we can start this thing. But for right now, it's on the boat and don't have to worry about that. Let's figure out something else to do. All right, we got a lot done, a lot accomplished. We got this whole console mounted into its permanent spot. And the reason I got it mounted in my permanent spot is because I have my fencing in and I made sure everything was in the right place. I'm not going to show you the fencing just yet. That's going to be for the next episode. I quickly threw it on here to make sure it was all in the right place. That way we can start mounting stuff up, drilling holes, and start hooking up this motor because I want to get this thing started in this episode. We're on track for that. You know, ignore the mess. I'm traveling from my garage to out here, and just keeping the tools out here is a lot easier than putting it up every day. And it's been hot. It's been very miserably hot, so just ignore that for right now. The first thing we hooked up is the steering. Now this steering is hydraulic steering from Vevor.com. I've installed this on pretty much all my boats except for my first pontoon boat, and I have to say it is a big upgrade. Hydraulic steering is way better than the whole rod, especially if you're doing like a custom build like this, where you have to run that thick cable all the way down and try to maneuver it into the right spot. And having hydraulic steering is just so much easier because it's just a couple little tubes. You can even have 2 different steering wheels on your boat, so you can have one up here and one up top. Usually that's for charter boats though. We don't really need 2 steering wheels on this, but it is an option. They have a ton of different options for any kind of size motor. It only took me maybe an hour and a half to get it all hooked up and working. So now I can turn the wheel and it turns just fine with ease. This is a very good option if you're rebuilding your boat or if you want to upgrade your current steering. Definitely recommend it. Their link is in my description. You can check that out there. Next up on it was the throttle cables. After I got the console/bar in the correct place, I had to measure out how long of throttle cables I needed. So that took like a week to get in after I ordered that. Got it all hooked up. That's pretty self-explanatory. It's pretty simple to hook all that up. I believe I ordered 15-foot throttle cables, but it all works very smoothly. And I think a lot of that is due to being a new motor. It's very smooth with the shifting. We'll see how it works whenever it's all running and hooked up. Moving down to the motor, we had to extend the battery cables. The battery cables that came with this motor were not long enough to reach all the way to my console, so I had to order new ones. And if you order new ones of those, you want to make sure you use marine grade wiring. You don't want to cheap out on that and use jumper cables per se. You don't want to do that because they'll end up corroding very easily because jumper cables are not for marine use. Because a lot of automobile wiring is not meant to hold up in weather, and this is going to be getting wet, and especially being in salt water or close to salt water, you want to use marine grade wiring or you're going to have to deal with a lot of corrosion issues. Got all that extended and ran up to the console. Along with all the other wiring already underneath the boat, we got it all up through and in the console now. So we're good to go there. So right here, the battery cables, we got it plenty long enough to run up in the console. The main harness for the motor, we got all that hooked up. It just plugs in directly right here. Pretty easy. The shift cable's all hooked up, and then this is the gas line. I'm waiting for this gas line to come in. It's supposed to be here today, but it got delayed. So I'm waiting to hook that up to our marine separator, and then our gas tank is in the middle of the pontoons back in here. It is the second pontoon back, and that is where the gas tank is. It's a massive aluminum gas tank that holds up in here. It is all hooked up, and we were ready to put gas in it once we get that last gas line to hook up to the motor. After that's in, I think we can start this. Now, one last thing we had to install is a propeller. I ordered one that I think is going to work great for this size boat. I have all that installed. I am waiting for the nut to come in. I had to order that because it did not come with this brand new motor. Well, I'm learning there's a lot of little things that don't come with a brand new motor, which is pretty weird. Once I get that gas line in and hooked up, I can put this side back on and it's ready to go. And then one of the last things I did was put oil in it. It is all ready to start up once the gas line's hooked up. There is a lot of wiring we have to do, and we're not going to get it all done in this episode. I know that because we still have to run wiring to the front for the speakers, all the lights up there. We got to run all that wiring still, but we can hook up the main stuff back here, especially for the gauges, because we want to hook up the RPMs, maybe the depth gauge, and also the new fuel gauge I got that I have to switch out. I don't know how well you can see in here, and it kind of looks like a mess. It's not going to stay like this. It's going to be a lot more organized, wires running up, and looking a lot prettier. We're going to have one battery for the motor, and then the second battery is going to run all of our lights and accessories and everything like that. I'll have a battery switch installed somewhere, probably around here. That way it's easy to get to. But definitely next episode, we're going to get the wiring completely finished. But we want to get it close enough to be able to start it right now. I want to make sure this motor starts. So that's what's up next. Get the most important stuff wired up, get the batteries installed, and then hopefully start this thing. Let's hope it all goes well. Stay tuned. Well, I wish I had better news. I can't get this thing started. I've been on my phone for the past like 5 hours looking at different forums, read the instruction manual, and I can't figure out why it won't crank or turn over. Turn on the switch. That beeping is for the depth meter, and I don't have that hooked up yet, and the other beeping is just pretty common. But once I go to turn it over and start it, it's not doing anything, and I don't know why, because I have everything hooked up. Let's go through the normal steps, double check everything. We have this kill switch, it's installed. If that's not installed, it will not start. If it's not in neutral, it won't start. Double check that. I even took this thing back apart to make sure the switch was okay. Switch is okay, it's all plugged in. I spun the propeller to make sure that was spinning and make sure it's not in gear. It is not in gear, so we know it's in neutral and it should start. It should. It should, and I don't know why. We'll go over the wiring real quick. It's hard to see what's going on, but all that's plugged in. This is for the RPMs and the power and all that kind of stuff. This white wire is kind of confusing because when you go on forums and online and on YouTube, because people talk about a white wire having to be hooked up to your 12-volt positive all the time because it talks to the ECU, I guess. And I'm assuming that this is the wire that needs to be hooked up, so I hooked it up and still doesn't do anything. I checked the fuse in here. These are just for your speedometer cable and other things. I don't need to hook those up because I don't have the Suzuki gauges. All this is wired up. The key's all wired up. It's making noise. Moving down low, you can see I have it all hooked up in there. Nothing is unplugged. Double checked everything. It is all plugged in. All this is plugged in. It's all tight. I don't know, and it's really frustrating. I guess most of the time when you buy a brand new motor, especially from Suzuki, they require a certified mechanic to install it, which I guess makes sense now. But I didn't want to do that because that's a big part of my channel is installing this stuff and doing it. And I can't just take it somewhere and have that done. It doesn't make sense. But I guess I see now why you want that done. Makes a little bit more sense. And there's not a whole lot of information online about just troubleshooting stuff because there's so many different kinds of motors, so many different kind of wiring. It's really confusing, and I don't know where to start on this because it's all plugged in and it powers on, so I don't know why it's not turning over. So if you're a outboard mechanic or you see something that is standing out to you, please let me know. Please let me know in the comments. Also, my email here, you can also get a hold of me there. I'm really confused, so we'll have to figure that out next episode, hopefully. Worst case scenario, we're gonna have to take this whole boat to a actual Suzuki place and get it figured out because a brand new motor should start. I feel like it should start. The battery on the right is for the motor. That's to start the motor and everything else. And this massive battery is to run all the electronics. This battery is from Vatrer. They make all kinds of different lithium ion batteries that run pretty much anything. This is actually supposed to run an RV. So with this kind of power, we're gonna be able to run all of our electronics plus a lot more. With this battery, we can even install like solar panels. I don't know where we would put them on the boat, but that is an option. We can also run a mini fridge, other kinds of electronics. We can put an inverter in here and have actual like plug-in power. A lot of possibilities we can do with this battery. I think we could camp for a couple days out on the water and be perfectly fine with power. Maybe we'll do that. Who knows? I don't have anything hooked up to it yet. That's all for next episode when we power on all the LED lights, all the accessory lights, and we have a lot more LED lights to install. Also next episode, we're gonna be digging into the fencing. We got some work to do to this new fencing before we install it. That is all for next episode, so stay tuned for that. We're so close to getting this thing out in the water. Once we get that motor running, that's gonna be a big thing. I didn't think it was gonna be that difficult, but apparently it is. If you have an Instagram, you can check me out there and follow me there for behind the scenes stories or a way to get a hold of me if you can figure out this motor, please. So stay tuned for next episode. I also bought 2 new projects that we're gonna be working on pretty soon. Actually, 3 new projects. 3 new projects. A lot of projects coming up and a lot of work to do, so stay tuned for all that. More videos, more editing, more work. Thanks. Bye.